This is the Culture Study Podcast, and I'm Anne Helen Peterson.
And I'm Lila Raptopoulos. I'm a culture journalist based in New York, and I spend a lot of time thinking about and writing about the culture inside of cities, food, art, music, literal cultures, and how to appreciate them.
I want to start with a side comment that you made in our email exchange about this episode. You said, "What a shit show it has become to organize all these infinite recs." In this era of infinite everything, it all feels like such a mess. There has never been more recommendations online. The quality and range is so vast. I feel that way, and I edit and write guides. So talk to me about this.
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of my work has been collecting and curating and thinking about, like, how to get under the skin of a city, really, and like really understand like what makes it great or special, and more than just like going to a hotel and like eating a bad steak or a Cobb salad and sort of, and like walking around the main center and then feeling like you saw nothing. Like also in your own city, like how to really feel like you're getting at something special that isn't. And as I have been sort of researching how people recommend or how people like organize their own cities, I started to realize that, like, there is just no good way. And you're on Instagram and you're scrolling, and a random influencer will tell you that, like, the best movie theater to go to in New York is a chain. And you're like, no, that's a bad recommendation. Please, nobody take that recommendation. And there are, like, hundreds of thousands of people who like it. And I'm just kind of curious. Part of all of my work is this curiosity about, like, how we're doing it and like how we're organizing all of it. And ultimately, I think it also says something about like the kind of lives we want to live.
Yeah.
The way that we sort of both optimize and fight the optimization.
Yes, there is this hunger
how
for
we enjoy ourselves.
This hunger for like, I have to have the best thing, right?
Yes.
Like, give me the best itinerary, the best restaurants. And oftentimes that leads to but basically a lot of people going on very similar trips, or like the overwhelm of once a smaller place is discovered. Like there's this incredibly vivid memory I have of being in Athens this past summer. And we were on a food tour, which like we will talk about this when we get into like how to love a city, but going on a food tour I think is actually a fantastic way to do it. Not only because it's a way to like go to the sorts of food locations that you wouldn't go if you were just a tourist walking around. It also, you give patronage to a bunch of these smaller places that like it is a really steady source of income for them to have a group of 10 people come in and have a coffee every single morning. But our guide was like pointing across the street. I think it was at like I can't even remember what this Greek place was selling, like what kind of food it was, but it was overwhelmed. It was just like absolutely mobbed. And it wasn't, it was a Euro place. It wasn't any better or worse than any other place. Like she's like, this place down the street is just as good. It's just that like it took off on TikTok. And now, in fact, they are so overwhelmed that like they're barely holding it together. But you feel like if I don't go to the Euro place in Athens that's like off the beaten path and so good, like that you're somehow missing out on this experience. And I think, there's just a lot going on.
I feel that way as well. I live in Red Hook, Brooklyn, and there is a restaurant that I will not name that has a burger that's very famous, and there's a line for that burger down the corner and around the street at all hours of all days. It's really, and like off season when it's freezing and windy down at Red Hook, it's right on the water, and people are waiting for a burger. That's like fine.
It's fine.
And I pass them and we want to yell at them, like, it's fine. The burger's just fine and they're not that nice in there. But, like, it's not, it doesn't really matter to them, I don't think. I almost wonder whether the actual, the quality, I mean, you're either bound to be disappointed by what you get because will it ever match your expectation, or it doesn't even become about the thing anymore. It's just the sort of, is it as good as they all say? Let me add it to my list, which also feels...
It's like magnetism almost, right? Like it reminds me of being at the zoo and like everyone's looking at the elephants and you're like, and you can't really get a good view of the elephants and they're not doing that much that's interesting. And you're like, guys, come hang out with me and look at the sloths, like, or go to like the night night exhibit, right? Like there are other places that you can go, but then people will be like, well, did you see the elephants? And you're like,
right.
I walked past them.
Right. It's the Mona Lisa.
Yeah.
I went to, I actually didn't go to Hagia Sophia when I went to Istanbul. And we were spending time with a friend of ours who's from Istanbul. She's like, I don't know. I mean, we could go, the sort of big historic mosque that was once an old church. And they were like, we could go, but it's gotten really sort of conservative in a way that we don't really like love and blah, blah, blah. We could skip it. And my father was like, he's from Greece. He's like, you went to Istanbul and you didn't go to Hagia Sophia. Did you even go to Istanbul? And I was like, great. Okay, thanks. I guess I didn't go. It's such a bizarre
Athens,
thing.
like, our tickets to the Acropolis were at like 6 p.m. It was during like the first huge heat wave in late June. It was at 6 p.m.
Horrible.
It was 95 degrees. We had like gone back to the hotel to try to cool off. Taking a little nap. The alarm goes off at 5:45, and both Charlie and I are like, oh, obligatory Acropolis. And just like sweating as we're going up the hill. The sun is coming down on us. It was magnificent. Ultimately,
it is spectacular.
Ultimately, the obligatory Acropolis.
And
that's the thing is how do you discern which part of the visit is like absolutely that thing? And we're just there's no like when I'm looking for stuff, and this is going to be a through line with our conversation here, it's like, and especially when we're talking about American cities, what do? Do you like get the guidebook? The guidebook sucks. Like
the guidebook is so boring.
The guidebook is so boring. Or for international places as well. Like I find myself in this weird space between like Lonely Planet is not my vibe anymore. But like Rick Steves is shooting for 15 years older than me. Do you know what I mean? Like where is the happy middle? But what is your process when you're writing a city guide? How do you do it?
Well, I tend to mostly I over-index for people who really know the city. So if I'm writing a city guide for New York, it has to be about something that I'm already kind of, I feel that I know a lot about. So I did a guide to Red Hook, which I feel I really know. Yeah. Or I will collect recommendations or interview somebody who knows like that. So like, for example, I interviewed Roy Choi about L.A. He's a chef in L.A.
Yeah, I remember that one.
All L.A. Yeah, and he's very, he can also explain why LA is different from other cities and how to enjoy it and how it moves slow and you have a lot of privacy there and you have a lot of alone time and you have to sort of, it's like LA is like a slow drive with your windows down and it gets better and better as the drive, it opens up to you as opposed to it being like a fast, I'm walking here thing. And I don't know. So that was hearing from those people is really the way to do it. And I find that even when I've commissioned people, it'll be things like, tell me what you're obsessed with. And they're like, oh, well, I mean, I'm obsessed with textiles. Yeah. I'm like, great.
Yeah.
Where's everywhere that you wouldn't expect to find textiles in New York City? What are the libraries for it? What are the museums you can actually ask to see something? Yep. Where what is a historic place? Where can you where are the galleries? Where can you learn to make textiles? What classes can you take?
Yeah.
It's just, it's the rabbit holes feel so much better sometimes than the kind of broad overview.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of mostly how I feel about visiting cities is that you probably will get it wrong if you believe in getting it right or getting it wrong. You will miss something. And if there's any way, the expectations are kind of your worst enemy.
Yes. And I think this is true with people and their feelings about living in a place too, which is something we're going to explore a lot in this episode. So what is your relationship to cities as a concept and to certain cities in particular?
Great question. Well, here are my cities. I grew up in Boston. We visited my dad's family in Thessaloniki, the center of the city in Greece, every summer, so I know that city very well. I went to college in New London, Connecticut, a little old whaling city that's kind of depressed but also very special.
Wait, did you go to
Connecticut College?
Yes, I interviewed there for a job. Wild.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I would have loved to have you as
No,
a professor.
and it was,
Not that
and it
we
was
ever would have
so
overlooked.
interesting because I remember that very few of the professors in the department lived there because
No.
no one
They
wanted
live
to
in New
live there.
York on the
They lived in
weekends.
New York or they lived in Rhode Island, or like some of them lived in Boston. Like it was a very, like if you're a professor, you don't live there kind of thing, which was
Yeah.
really not what I was looking for in a place to go
Totally.
live.
I know. But also, I mean, I believe that all cities are kind of special, but
Yeah. So do I.
also a special city. And then I lived in London for 3 years, and I've lived in New York City for a cumulative about 11. And I guess the way I think about cities, my like broad theory on cities is that all cities are beautiful. They all have beauty, I should say. They all have interesting history.
Yes.
They all have people who care about them. They all have multiple cultures. And all of them, or most of them, have some areas of density.
Yes.
Not all of them I know, but that is sort of a thing about cities. So I think that like what a city is at its core is like a collection of people and things at different distances apart. And some distances we know are more charming than other distances, but they're made up of a lot of little bits.
Yeah.
And sometimes like believing in the caricature of the city can kind of ruin the city for you.
Yes.
And what a city needs to be kind of taken at face value and appreciated at face value for what it is and not for what it isn't, if that makes sense.
This is why I love mid-sized cities, because no one has high expectations for them.
Right.
Especially like mid-sized cities that aren't like on everyone's list. You know, I'm not talking about like, I mean, Austin isn't even a mid-sized city anymore, right? Like it's a city, but it used to be a mid-sized city.
Yep.
There's just so much wonder in like going to a place. And I think a lot of this for me is born of growing up in like a town. And for me, like driving 2 hours to go to Spokane, which is such a mid-sized city, has like kind of a downtown. I actually really love Spokane. People like in Washington State, there is so much sport in making fun of the east side of the state in general and in Spokane in particular. But like to me, it was fancy. It had the mall. It had concerts. Like it was just so cool and wonderful, and had traffic. Like there was a freeway going through the town. It was all like brand new to me. A Pier 1 Imports. Can you believe it? My mom would go there to buy like rice in bulk because you couldn't get rice, like jasmine rice, where we grew up. I know.
I love
so I have had a lot of opportunities to both live in and visit mid-sized cities, I think in part from my time reporting and then also from going to speak at different colleges and universities, that sort of thing. So some of my favorites are like, I love Tulsa. I love Iowa City.
Amazing.
I love Eugene, Oregon. I lived there when I went to my master's program, but it's just like a weird, still pretty hippie town. I love Minneapolis, but I also used to live there, and I just love like being surrounded by that particular culture. But I also love New York, and I think that like sometimes people get into this obsession with like talking about which cities are objectively good and objectively bad.
Right.
Right? Like my brother is always shitting on Boston. Like
everybody loves to shit on Boston.
I know, and I'm just like, it's a good city. Like what? Like it's a city. There's so much there. And he's like, well, the food isn't as good as New York. And I'm like, who cares? It's still good.
No, of course. Right. Exactly. I mean, the other thing that's happening right now, right, is that like the internet is like preloading cities for you before you get there in your head, and then like you've already seen it. Like you think you've already seen it, and you've already been told like Boston sucks, or what you should do or what you shouldn't do, or what's lame or what's great, and then like you're grading that city when you get there against this imaginary version of it, like before you've even landed. And there's like, this is kind of a weird one, but Boston is like very racially segregated in a lot of ways because of its history, and so a lot of people will be like, Boston's racist, and you're like, well, I mean, yes, like its layout is actually like quite racist. And yet my experience going to school there and growing up there, it was like I had like more racially diverse friendships than and most of my other friends. So there's a kind of it's easy to just sort of decide, like
people always say, like, Washington, D.C. is dumb, right? Like, it's
right.
like,
D.C. is dumb is a great one.
It's all these, like, transients who, like,
too.
don't want to hang out or are obsessed with power. And what I always see, like, is that you're like, well, that's because you're only hanging out with those people. Like, there are lots of other people who live in D.C. who are operating outside of those spheres.
Yeah, I feel that way about Miami too, actually. I think Miami like has a reputation that like exists there. And it's like really, if it's not your vibe to have a sparkling tequila bottle like come to your table, then it's not your vibe. But also like when you're in Miami, you can go down a kind of side street and you're like in another country in a way that's like, I feel like I'm in Mediterranean in a weird way. Like, and also Cuba and also, it's its own place.
And you have a great Miami city guide that we'll link to in the show notes. So
thanks.
That made me like I've never been to Miami, and it actually really made me want to go. So
great. I love that.
That's the goal.
That is the goal.
Our episode today is very broadly about falling in love with cities. So again, as a visitor or a resident. So the first half of our questions are about cities in general, and in the second half of the questions, we're going to get into some specific cities. So
yes,
let's start with this question from Michelle.
I love a city. They are my favorite place to visit, and I always want to get a sense of the real energy of a place outside of tourist centers when I'm traveling. However, I tend to have the urge to be a completist and see and do and eat everything that I have seen recommended, which can leave me feeling totally exhausted and ultimately unhappy on my trip. But also, limiting my scope feels disappointing. What is your advice for planning a trip to a city you've never been to and not getting burnt out?
Oh, what's your advice here?
I love this question because I feel like it perfectly encapsulates a type of anxiety that so many of us have. Yeah. And I understand this feeling, and I don't think that Michelle is asking about travel planning as much as she's asking like for permission to do less.
Yeah.
That like there's like it's like a completist urge that I definitely have to fight a lot. And like as we were talking about before, it makes that a kind of research before you visit a city and an expectation of what you should see when you get there makes you feel like you're taking a test that you can fail. Yeah. And it reminded me of this trip I took to Mexico City, and on the last day, I was waiting in line for this like famous pastry place that I was passing. I saw the line and I was like, well, of course I have to try it. It looks like I have to try it. And I was so full and so constipated and like so unhappy. And I sat on this bench and I forced myself to eat this like pastry. And I thought like, who am I doing this for?
Right.
Like what is this for?
Right.
And so let us release you, I feel in some ways. Like, maybe that's a useful question to ask yourself before you run off to the next thing. Like, who am I doing this for?
Yeah.
That's my first thought on it. What did you think?
I had a similar experience at the end of doing the Alta Via 1 in Italy. My brother and I finished. We went to, like, a hotel and had a great dinner and like the first real shower that we had in, like 8 days or whatever. And then I took a train the next day to Milan, and I had a night in Milan, and I was like, oh, I got to go downtown. Like I got to see, like I got to do this. And I was so hot and so tired and like really like taken aback by suddenly being around all of these crowds after being in the middle of effectively nowhere in Italy. And I was like, again, I just sat there for a second. It was just like all the hot sun reflecting off the marble, and I was like, I'm just gonna go get a bunch of stuff from the grocery store and just go eat in my room. And it was amazing.
Good for you.
But I do think there's this pressure, especially with places that you have spent an amount of money to go visit, right? That like I got to make this quote unquote worth it. And also this fear, I think, that you'll never be able to go back, so you have to pack everything in. And I know that this is like incredibly optimistic on my part, but I just say to myself, like, treat this like you're going to be able to come back to this place again.
That's really good advice.
And sometimes it'll be true and sometimes it won't be true, but I don't think that you're ever going to be like, I didn't eat every like pastry that is, I didn't eat every hot dog or every type of pizza or I don't know, have every type of like coffee, whatever the
Right.
stereotypical thing is. And the cities are always changing. So there's always going to be something that you haven't seen yet or that is going to be gone. And I think
Mm-hmm.
like giving yourself grace that's the case is really useful.
Mm-hmm.
How do you decide where to eat when you go to a new city?
That's a good question. Well, the way my kind of system is a sort of like informed spontaneity kind of where
Yeah.
like I'm mostly collecting if someone tells me about a place that they went that they loved or that or that they really recommend, I'll put it in my Google Maps and I'll put a note in the map of like want to go and why,
Yeah.
and just like kind of let that collect over time.
Yeah.
As I've sort of edited pieces, also like you kind of you just see so many recommendations and you start to remember them and put them in and. So usually, I'm a sort of chaotic last minute traveler. Everybody's different.
Uh-huh.
I'm a pretty chaotic last minute traveler, and so is my husband. And so we'll like book flights late and we'll plan on the way and, we'll be too late to get a reservation, some
Yeah.
of the most important reservations. So we just kind of accepted that and given up on it. But asking friends who've been there or who know it well, it's a mix. Asking friends who've been there and who know it well, looking at what I've already saved, going through, I do go through FT Globetrotter if they have on the cities. I'll like open a bunch of tabs and look
Yep.
through them. There are some like newsletter, like even your newsletter, Anne, if you'll sometimes like say I went to Greece and when I was there, these are the places I went that I liked. If things really stand out to me, I just throw them in at the time that I see them.
Oh, wow.
And then later kind of see where the kind of clusters are and
Yeah.
just be like, okay, let's just go to that neighborhood today and we'll stop by some of those places and see. So I kind of do it that way. And then we leave a lot of room to just
Yeah.
see what happens and what we feel like. And to like ask the person, you're staying at someone's Airbnb and they're like, okay, you have to go here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why not? Yeah.
I feel like this is so much more possible in European cities or
Yes.
like big cities globally, just generally,
Mm-hmm.
and less possible in a lot of American cities. It's definitely possible in a place like Toronto or Vancouver or Montreal, but maybe not so much in Calgary.
Yeah.
And like I or Santa Fe is a great example of like, oh, you can find all these great places like just walking around, but
Right.
like harder in Houston to walk around and find all of the places, or even in Austin. Everything is scattered so much in Austin that it's like
Yes.
very hard without relying on like a ton of Ubers, and it's also so hot all the time.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think of like the reliance on Google Maps in terms of like doing all the pins and like sometimes when people share those maps with me, they make me feel very overwhelmed.
That's really funny. I actually before this I went on Instagram and I asked sort of my friends and people who follow me just to tell me how they organize all of their recommendations for cities. And so many of them used Google Maps. And one of them said basically like, this is the only tool that hasn't been ruined. And it's like the only like, it's like intuitive in a way that makes sense. I know, of course. I'm like, I can't even believe we're giving Google a compliment. But there's this like, it does kind of just like, do the thing you need it to do in a place, which is just like save it. But if it's not for you, if it's not for you, then what do you do? Do you have lists? Do you kind of?
I'll have like a couple of places. Yeah, like I often use for larger cities the eater Ricks, which have been spectacular, even for places like Mallorca, and I have not been failed, I think, by an eater rack. So like I'll write a couple of those down and try to like figure out the neighborhoods, but I admit it's not a good solution. Usually it's like me on Google Maps being like, okay, how far away is this from this? And like, is this on the way to this? Whereas I could just like put pins down in the Google map and see where everything is. But I think that this is the same reason why when someone's like, oh, I can send you this Google Doc that I send to everyone about all of my recommendations. Like theoretically, that's amazing. practically it overwhelms me.
Yes, I find that hard too, also because you don't have any context for it.
Yes.
So you're just getting a list of places and none of them mean anything to you. Yeah. That's like, I find that the worst. But if you're talking to somebody and they say, I know you, and when you go to Copenhagen, you have to go and spend a whole day at the Louisiana Museum.
Yeah.
Then you go.
Yeah. And I do,
even if it disappoints you, that's interesting. You just like... That's what I prioritize.
Not American cities, but European cities. Like, I actually do trust Rick Steves' discernment when it comes to museums, because he is such a nerd and he and his team are such nerds that they're like, the Habsburg Furniture Museum is sick. And
yes, totally.
And I love a niche museum. So like that for me, like instead of spending all the money to go to all like the palaces and stuff, like that's the sort of thing that I'm like, yes, I want to do that.
I also think it's worth thinking. I mean, I was thinking about this for some of the questions about like, how do you love a city? We'll get into them, but how do you love a city that you just ended up in that like doesn't have some of the things you love, like great food or whatever, or something else? I find that like it's useful to think about the city, like when you're traveling to cities, to go for the thing that your city doesn't have.
Yes.
And then like just go for it. Like if you live in a place that doesn't have a lot of great like restaurants or like kind of high level hospitality, then you go to New York or Chicago or whatever and just go to all the places. But I find that's the case also for visiting. And I'd be curious what you think. Like visiting a mid-size or small American city that maybe doesn't have like a town square that you can wander and drink a glass of rosé or whatever on a cobblestone street. Like it is worth thinking, okay, I'm not going to Houston I'm not going to expect Houston to have a certain type of dining, but I am going to expect like they have a really big Vietnamese community. Like we should get Vietnamese food when we're there.
Absolutely.
Or like they have like they're about like steakhouses and like strip clubs. Like we should go to a steak. Like let's like kind of lean into what the city kind of wants you to see, even if it's silly. I mean, you don't have to go to a strip club. I don't know. I've been to one, but
it's a vibe.
It's a vibe. It's a vibe.
Yeah, I think that like this is where personal recommendations can be so useful, and then why it's sometimes hard when you don't have personal recommendations. So this next question, first of all, we just need to say to Michelle, we want to give you permission to do less.
Yes.
You shouldn't be disappointed. Enjoy the things that you are doing. Just like allow yourself to spread out in them. So
yes. And can I also just say quickly before we move on that I'm Oliver Burkeman. People talk about him a lot. He wrote this book, 4,000 Weeks, and he's kind of like an expert on giving yourself permission. But he talks about this thing called the completist mindset, where like the fantasy of doing everything is kind of a way to avoid committing to anything.
Yes.
Because like once you choose, it's loss. Like you choose one thing and it means that you can't do the other.
Yes.
And a completist kind of wants to keep all options alive. But a trip where you try to do everything, you kind of end up sad and like you've done nothing. So it's better to sort of like pick a lane and, as you were saying, expect that you'll go back.
Today's episode is brought to you by Article. I'm so excited because something that I ordered from Article just arrived, and I feel like it's going to change my life.
What is it?
Since moving to the island, I have not had a full-length mirror. So if I wanted to see like my full outfit, I would stand precariously on top of the toilet and try to like get just the lower half of my body down, like below the chin, right? I was like, how does that look? Charlie's like, I can't do that. I will break the toilet. But I was able to do it. It was not great. So I've been really looking forward to not only making space for a full-length mirror, but also finding the perfect one that isn't just the kind from Target that you hang over your door, which is what I had for much of my 20s and 30s.
That's what I still have.
It serves its purpose. But maybe I can talk you into the Laud floor mirror, which is from Article.
Oh, that's lovely.
It is so gorgeous. A nice little like arch on top and then just square all the way down. And you just lean it along like your wall.
So you don't even have to mount it.
You don't have to mount it. It just looks so classy. Like it looks like a piece that I will probably have for several decades. And it arrived via Article's fast, affordable shipping that goes all across the US and Canada. If you need professional assembly, I didn't need professional assembly for my mirror, but if you're getting something that's slightly more complicated, you can even pay just a little bit extra for a hands-off experience. They have a 30-day satisfaction guarantee, and you can shop with confidence knowing that if you're not completely in love with your new furniture, you can easily return it. Right now, Article is offering our listeners $50 off their first purchase of $100 or more. Too bad this wouldn't be your first purchase, Melody. Too bad it would be like your 11th purchase. Otherwise, you could use that $50
I just use a
off.
different email address every time. Pro tip.
To claim, you go to article.com/culture and the discount will automatically be applied at checkout. That's article.com/culture for $50 off your first purchase of $100 or more. The Culture Study Podcast is brought to you by Gooder. Last week, I did my totally nutso relay race that goes from the Canadian border to the tip of Whidbey Island. It's 200 miles. And sometimes in the past, we have all had coordinating Gooder sunglasses. This time we didn't. Instead, we had like cool hats and cool sweatshirts. But again, no matching Gooders this year, but still everyone was wearing Gooders because we all wear them to go on our everyday runs, to live our everyday lives, to go to the beach if you have kids, if you know that like chances are strong that like you're going to go into the water and you want to keep your sunglasses on. The thing about Gooders is they stay on your freaking face. I want to shout this from the rooftops that if you want a pair of sunglasses that stays on your face when you're doing gardening, when you are picking dahlias, when you're at the farmer's market, when you're chasing your kids around, when you're cycling, when you're doing anything outside, they are absolutely the sunglasses for it. And they're super cute. They come in so many different styles. I have at least, I think, 4 pairs. So if you're ready to upgrade your eyewear to something functional, fashionable, fun, and affordable that stays on your face, head to gooder.com/culture and you get $10 off your first order. That's GOODR.com/culture. Next question is about not loving a city. This comes from Emily, and Melody's going to read it.
How do you know when you've done enough to love a city, and at what point do you admit that it may not be for you? I moved to Chicago 3 years ago and have done everything I can think of to make it click. Group classes galore, guitar, figure drawing, etc., volunteering with a neighborhood political organization, happy hours with work colleagues, joining 2 gyms, dating widely and enthusiastically. There's so much I love about this city, but I still don't feel like I've clicked and can't shake my love for the Pacific Northwest. How do you know when you've tried enough? Is fantasizing about another place you've loved just a trick to keep you from being present, or is it a true call of the heart?
Okay, what do you think
this
here?
This is interesting. I mean, my first instinct was kind of like, maybe she actually should do less and try to expect nothing. I think like there's this idea that like every time you go out, you're deciding whether you like the city more or less, and like it might disappoint you. And a city doesn't really know that you're expecting anything of it. So you could have a good day or a bad day, and the city's not trying to keep you or not. Like it doesn't know. So I don't know enough about her friendship network, but I wonder whether it would help to, instead of going wide and doing a million things, try to start to go deep. Like seems like she's been in this like explore mode where she's trying a bunch of classes and doing a bunch of things and doing a bunch of dating. But like maybe if you try at this stage going into kind of build roots mode, you'll find something else. I mean, the other thing I was thinking when I was reading it is like, I don't know enough about her, but like, and there may be some threat for that for somebody who kind of misses a place. That like if you go deep and you actually develop real roots in Chicago, it'll be harder to go back to the Pacific Northwest, and you don't really want to let go of that. But it might be worth thinking about that question honestly, like what does clicking mean to you?
I also think
those
3
are
years.
my thoughts.
3 years is short. Like
that's
it
true.
Sucks, but it is short. 5 years I think is like a great litmus test. This is unpopular opinion with some people because I think some people really think like where you are, you should try to build that place. But I also know what it can feel like to like feel very tied to a landscape.
Yes.
And for me, that was really part of it when I was living in places that weren't the Pacific Northwest, was like, it wasn't my landscape. Like the air didn't feel like my air, right? Like the way that the heat worked in the summer. And I'm not just talking about like I'm actually talking specifically about heat at night. So in the Pacific Northwest, it gets cold at night. And it is just like a very different way of being. Sometimes I really miss like living in New York or Texas and being able to just like never bring a sweater. Like what a revelation. But it also, like, your sleep is different in the summer when you don't have to think about those sorts of things. And so for me, I also don't think you have to be so precious sometimes, unless there's something that's absolutely holding you there, about like making a decision to move. And
like if you want to go back, go back.
Yeah. If you want to go back, go back. And it's not going to be the same place that you remembered, because the cities that you grew up in or that you used to live in, like, they've changed. And it's hard to go back. But at the same time, like, if that is where like your heart is tethered, then that's really hard to shake. I think that that's an okay way to feel as well.
Yes.
Melody, you have some thoughts on this one?
I do. I lived in DC for 6 years, and I had amazing friends. I had incredible job opportunities. There's so much to do, and I hated it. And it was like anything that happened. I mean, because what was so hard for me was like on the way to do any of those things that I loved, like the metro was always late, or somebody was like mowing me down in a crosswalk. And the first thought in my head was always, I fucking hate it here.
Yeah.
And I just like could never shake that refrain. And I'm not from Kansas City. I went to college outside of here, but I found myself really missing Kansas City while I was in DC. And every time I came back, I was like, gosh, this is just like such a great city. And so when the opportunity came, I moved here. And of course, like, you still have bad days, but if somebody cuts me off or like tries to T-bone me in an intersection, the thought is never, I hate it here. It's always just like, wow, that person sucks.
That's huge.
Yeah, I think Emily is experiencing a call to the Pacific Northwest. And I'm with you guys that like, okay, just because I was every single day thought about leaving DC and was like, I will really miss my friends. I also knew I was never going to make enough money to like truly enjoy DC, like eat at the nice restaurants and stuff. But it's not hard to leave.
Yeah. It's also worth kind of remembering that I felt this way in London too. I was there for 3 years and then was kind of ready. I was in a relationship there that ended, and I thought I could either stay here and keep, I loved the city, or I could move back to New York, and I just wanted to go home.
Yeah.
And I felt like I need to not feel like I'm failing or something by going home, because I lived a whole life here and I really loved it. But that was what my body was telling me. And actually, when I got back, having lived, and I imagine this will be the case for her too, having lived in this other city and like being in explore mode in London made my relationship with New York so much better, because I came back in the same mindset of like, okay, I'm still in the business of making friends, even though I have a bunch of friends here already. And like, I need to look at this city the way I looked at London. Like, I'm going to make a list. I want to kayak on the East River. I want to, I want to like spend a week in Astoria. I don't know, whatever it was. And that's just like, New York really woke up to me when I came home, actually.
I like that perspective too. So Emily, keep us updated.
Yes, please.
Next question is about particular features of cities, and it comes from Allison.
I moved from a public transportation city to a car city. How can I best invite serendipity into my life here when I don't walk everywhere and just encounter things? Going from point A to B feels much more intentional and much less interesting now.
I feel this so much.
Yeah, maybe you should start. I don't know.
You're like, I live in a place where it's all serendipity all the time.
I've almost never lived in a car city.
Wow. Yeah, I think that it's really difficult. Like even now, I mean, the island that I live on is obviously a very serendipitous experience all the time. But when I go into town, it's all like going from here to here to here, like errands, 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 and get back to take the ferry. And it can really feel like you're not experiencing the city at all. And I think some of my ambivalence just generally about the town slash city of Bellingham relates to the fact that I haven't had as much serendipitous experience as before. I mean, one way that I do love to experience other towns that I have visited, and this is like one of the ways that I've really come to love various places, is going on runs. And like you could replace run with cycling. Like, and it doesn't have to be, sporty cycling. It can just be like riding your bike. And again, this is like, it depends on the infrastructure that your place has for some sort of cycling. But usually there is some sort of cycling capability. And you notice more when you're not in a car.
Yes.
Or if you go and you park downtown, and this is what we do now, is like, park downtown and be like, okay, I'm gonna go to this coffee shop, and then I'm gonna go to some of these shoppy shops, and then my movie starts in 45 minutes, and I'll go over there because there is like a great little indie movie theater downtown, and that facilitates a little bit more of that meandering. So even though you're not able to walk from the place where you live to these other places, you can drive to the place where you can be a little bit more serendipitous, if that makes sense.
Yeah. It also, I don't know how much of a not walking city she lives in.
Yeah.
But I imagine that like a lot of non-walking cities, like, I mean, LA is huge, so it doesn't count, but like we'll have a walking neighborhood that actually you can live in if you want. Like there are some houses that are walkable, and it might be worth, if it really matters to her, to maybe try to live in one of those.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I totally agree. Like wherever you can kind of like find a spot to park and hang.
No one would call Seattle a public transportation city, even though it does have a very good light rail. The light rail just doesn't have great connections to get you from anywhere that's not along the light rail. But it is such a neighborhood city. And so like if you find the different neighborhoods and like post up there, even if you can't afford to live there, that's the other problem, is that a lot of those places are increasingly unaffordable. But like that can be your place where you try to at least experience some of that serendipitous feeling, whether it's on the weekend or after work or whatever. So
I have a thought too, because Kansas City is very car centric. It's really spread out. I never drive on the interstate, even though that is the fastest way to get anywhere. So like my therapist's office, I go like every other week. If I took the interstate, it would take me like 15 minutes to get there. I would much rather go on the boulevard. It takes me 30 minutes to get there.
Oh, so nice.
But it's like, then I'm driving past all the cute houses, and then because I'm also driving slower and I'm taking a like longer route, I'm noticing the new places that are open. And so I think avoiding the interstate and maybe taking a different route to wherever you have to go is also good.
That's great.
The other thing is the bookstore. Like, see if there's a good bookstore. Just have that be the place where serendipity happens.
Well, and like that's the thing about like bookstores, especially independent bookstores. We're not talking about the Barnes and Noble that's like next to the Barnes and Noble serve their purpose, but they're also usually like on big box store lane in my experience. But if you can find the place where the independent bookstore is, it is almost always in a place where there is foot traffic, because that is how independent bookstores survive. So that is your place. And that's like downtown. So the other thing that's interesting about Bellingham is it used to be 4 towns, and then they like plopped them all together. So there actually are like 4 different places that you could think of as like a little mini downtown. And that's where the independent bookstore is, in like one of the 4 satellite downtowns. And it's a very lovely place to go.
It's so nice. There's always events there too. They like want you to make friends.
Exactly. Like book clubs, all sorts of things. Okay, our next question comes from Jessica.
How do you fall in love with a city that you moved to for practical reasons and not because of the place itself? My family and I recently moved to New Haven because it was the closest we could afford to our aging parents in New York City, and because it seemed a better long-term bet climate-wise than the Southwest. I assumed that I'd just fall in love with it, the same way I fell in love with Tucson a decade ago. that every city has a uniquely lovable character if you take time to discover it, that immersion would foster belonging, and it just hasn't happened. I don't know if it's my stage in life, I'm a mom of small kids, or a bad cultural fit, or what, but I am struggling. Help. Any and all advice for making this work is appreciated.
I really appreciate this question because I think a lot of people find themselves in these situations.
Absolutely.
Would love to be able to like pick and choose the city that they live in that like best matches their personality and their vibe, but that's not the case. Whether it's for work or family. So, but man, New Haven is particularly tough for many intersecting reasons. Have you spent much time there?
A little bit, just because I went to school kind of nearby. We would go to shows there because we could get cheap tickets to see Wilco and things like that.
Classic millennial college experience.
Totally, I know, ridiculous.
But it has this really difficult thing of being a place where, like, if you aren't going to college there or working in some capacity in relation to the college, like a lot of people who do work there don't live there. Like it's almost a commuter town with also these long-term residents who only live there for 4 years. You know what I mean? Like it's just like, it's hard.
Yeah. It's also a tough stage of life. I mean, like small kids moving without choosing the place, like practical reasons. It's kind of, that also adds another level of difficulty. I mean, the nice thing about New Haven is that they have all these little old Italian spots. Yeah. It's like a very kind of interesting, a lot of little shops that like sell like cheese and pizzas, and there could be kind of fun communities in there. And obviously, it has free classes at Yale, and you can see shows for cheap, as I mentioned. And, you know, you can, like, just go out one night and go see a student show of, you know, classical music that I'm sure will be awesome and all of those things. But in this one, again, I feel like maybe what you need are people, like friends who stop by. And I don't know how hard that would be in New Haven in this particular circumstance for this particular person. But there's this study that I think about all the time. It's called the Framingham Heart Study. And it basically says that, like, having friends who live, if you have, like, one or two friends that live within walking distance of you, you're, like, 25 to 35% happier.
I know. That's
like, that's all it is.
The whole argument of my book.
Yes, exactly.
Like, do what you have to do to have those friends, whether that's making friends with people who are nearby or moving next to your friends. I think the hard thing that, at least from a lot of readers and listeners who've told me who are in similar predicaments, is like, you're probably doing like a fair amount of like aging parent work. Right?
Yes, not fun.
Especially if you're commuting into the city, because it says we could afford closest that we could afford to our aging parents in New York. So like that's a pretty big time commitment, right? Going into the city to spend time with your aging parents.
Yes.
And then small kids who are pulling you in different directions. And usually the most likely vector of friendship is the parents of other kids. But if you don't feel like those parents, like the cultural fit feels off, you're like, throw up your arms. Like, what the frick am I going to do? Right. And yeah, I would say like,
move.
Well, maybe you move because there are different places like that aren't New Haven that are maybe a little, that are still like you can still access New York.
Yes, and there are actually a lot of good, like, towns, like, cool towns, like Mystic or whatever, that, like, are actually strangely walkable. Groton, Long Point, I don't know.
Mystic. I mean, famous for Mystic Pizza, but that's how, like, it's a really cool town, too.
It is a great town. Yeah, actually, and Mystic Pizza is a real pizza place that has mediocre pizza, but go anyway.
But I would maybe suggest that, like, trying to branch out and find some people that aren't parents is the way that you're going to find, like, and then maybe depending on how Jessica feels in terms of like relationship to Yale, like I know if I lived there, like I would be like, Yale, right? Like it's just like there's like an aura around it, but and maybe also around people who are affiliated with it. But I also think like whether it's people who work on staff or like going to like some of the offerings that they have for classes or like going to concerts. Like, again, this is hard because she has young kids, but there are ways, I think, to maybe go beyond the parents to try to find some of the things that people love. But we sympathize
I think
with you,
that's
Jessica.
right. We do.
Okay, next question, fun. We're going outside of the United States. Melody's going to read this question from Z.
I've lived in Berlin for more than 10 years after many, many years of moving around. This is the longest I've ever lived anywhere in my nearly 4 decades of life. Recently, I found that I have fallen a bit out of love with my hometown. It's lost the magic that initially drew me to it, which was its at once creative and free and progressive and adventurous spirit, which recently seems stifled by gentrification and money flooding the formerly poor but sexy city. What advice do you have for rediscovering a city where you've lived for a long time in the hope of falling back in love with it? And what would you say to someone with terminally itchy feet? How can I decide whether this city is it for me?
Have you ever had this feeling?
I actually did in like my earlier years in New York. After 2 years, I felt like, or 2 or 3 years, I was like, all my friends from, my sisters lived here and friends I already knew lived here, and I felt kind of stuck in a routine, and I felt that that the city was stifling in some way. And actually leaving it really helped me. And when I came back, I felt totally different. But it's a great question. I think that one thing, one thing that is just a simple thing that you can do is just like get on a bus and then just like go a random number of stops and then get off the bus. Like maybe just kind of let go of the way that you already know your city and try to just really try to see it in a different way, from a different person's point of view, from a different, there's definitely a lot of grief in watching your city change. And that's real. And also cities change, and that's also what's beautiful about them. And it's not always only bad that cities change. And actually, when some areas get gentrified, then other areas get weird. And go to those areas, and maybe it's not the area you used to go to, and maybe it feels like it's full of young people, or maybe it's full of a culture that you don't know or whatever. But I don't know, get in there. Kind of, it's a cheesy frame, but just beginner's mindset.
Try to stay in there. Where is the cool and weird stuff happening? In some ways that's hard to find, especially as you get older, but what vitality if you can find that, right?
Where are the places that people move because they can't afford the center anymore? Go there.
And find what's an art show that's happening there, right? That's where you're going to find the cool weirdos. What are pop-ups that are happening, or all sorts of things like that. Find a bar that does live stuff of weird readings and that sort of thing. I think reacquainting yourself with the thing that you really try to pinpoint, what was it that made this place feel really alive to me?
Yes.
When I moved here.
And find the new version of it, maybe.
Yeah.
Because
and maybe that involves moving, and maybe it doesn't. Moving within your city, even. Which I know is a privilege, but sometimes people move to find more space all the time. So it's okay to move to be with the cool creatives again.
Yeah,
it's fine.
Moving within your city is great advice. I hate to quote Esther Perel. I don't know why. I'll quote Esther Perel here, and she has this thing that she said for years and years about how you have many relationships in your life. It could either be with many different people or many relationships with the same person, and I think that can be true in cities too. That you can sort of let go of the old relationship you had with that city and develop a new one. I don't go out in the same way in New York that I used to. I discovered this is so silly because I'm a culture journalist, but I discovered Off-Broadway and was oh, this is great. What was I doing? Right. And now there's a whole world of people. They're this is your first time here? Oh my gosh, how could this be your first time? And they are oh, that's a whole corner of the city. So yeah, just kind of go with that.
And I think that like insisting that you're still in the same relationship is a way to get like incredibly resentful.
Absolutely.
And that's a horrible way to relate to the city.
Yeah.
And so if you can't for some reason discover that, then again, there's no moral balance in living in a city for longer.
Yes.
Right? Like both in terms of like it's bad to move or it's good to stay. Like you have to figure out like the reasons that work for you.
Absolutely.
And let go of any sort of judgment in that capacity.
Mm-hmm.
This episode of the Culture Study Podcast is brought to you by Honeylove. So in the summer, I always wake up in the morning and I'm like, what kind of bra day is it today? It's going to be hot. I'm going to be always out in the Dahlia field a little bit. Do I actually, though, want to be wearing a sports bra all day and like feel that sort of like tight compression all day? Usually, no. The perfect kind of halfway in between is the Cloud Embrace bra. It's a soft, breathable, incredibly comfortable bra that is still supportive enough to replace your old underwire bra that makes you feel like you put it on and you kind of forget that you're wearing a bra, which is perfect for summer. I love it.
I wore mine yesterday. With my family, I took my twin nieces to the zoo, and it was a very hot day. And I realized that since this bra gives you a really nice shape, it doesn't like mash you together and down. There's no like middle boob sweat happening.
Ah, yes.
I was very grateful for that.
Okay, it's endorsed for hot day at the zoo with 2 children under the age of 3, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. This is a strong endorsement. Right now, you can treat yourself to the most advanced bras and shaper on the market. Use our exclusive link to save 20% off Honeylove at honeylove.com/culture. That's honeylove.com/culture. After you check out, they're going to ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them that we sent you. Experience the new standard in comfort and support with Honeylove. Today's episode is brought to you by OneSkin. I am obsessed with the OneSkin tinted sunscreen. It is so good. It is so light. It stays there. It doesn't get oily. It's not too shimmery. Sometimes I think that like these tinted moisturizers can go a little too heavy on the like glow component. I just really, really love it. So the great thing is I'm using my OneSkin moisturizer, which has the OS1 peptide that works to reverse the visible signs of UV aging. And then I'm also putting on the SPF to protect from new damage. Every time that I use OneSkin, I'm giving my skin deeper hydration, barrier support, and visibly healthier skin long term. It's like investing in your skin's like 401k. That's how I think about it. OneSkin's results are backed by 4 peer-reviewed clinical studies, over 10,000 5-star reviews, and they've been recognized by Bloomberg as a leader in skin longevity. You really don't need a complicated routine to get healthier, younger-looking skin. Born from a decade of longevity research, OneSkin is helping you unlock your healthiest skin now and as you age. And for a limited time, you can try OneSkin with 15% off using code CULTURE at oneskin.co/culture. That's 15% off oneskin.co with code CULTURE. After you purchase, they're going to ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them that we sent you. Okay, we're going to do some city-specific questions. It's very interesting to see what cities came up again and again, and one of them was Boston. Yeah. So here's Anna.
Help. I moved to Boston, or really the greater Boston area, a year and a half ago to be with my partner, who grew up here and has a really solid tie to this community. I previously lived in New York City for years, which I'll forever believe is the best city in the United States, and I'm really struggling to fall in love with Boston. As someone who grew up halfway between these 2 cities, I've always really thought of Boston as the far inferior city. I love being back in New England culture, but otherwise I've struggled to make the city feel like home. Will it just take time since I'm comparing year 6 in New York City to year 2 in Boston? Or will I never get over feeling like New York City is the best place to live in the world? Should I try to make Boston feel more like New York City, or should I embrace Boston for Boston? I try to focus on all the things that Boston has to offer, but I really still miss Brooklyn all the time.
Oh, man.
You are uniquely equipped to answer this
question. I am very equipped. This one is fantastic because, as listeners now know I know Boston well. And am I bored of going to the Science Museum? Yes, I am. And do I find a lot of the restaurants like kind of bro-y? Yes, I do. And I totally get it. I think like the answer is do not try to make Boston feel like Brooklyn. Let Boston be Boston. Boston contains multitudes. It really does. Like you said you like the New England vibe. Like that is very close. Like you feel a New Englandness. You could feel like a small town yellow wood house, literal red barn, like within 5-10 miles away. It's so charming. There's like, I would say like Back Bay is very gorgeous, but like very unfriendly. But, I grew up in Brookline and we took the T everywhere. And it was just like such a lovely way to live. It was kind of, they called it a trolley suburb, like kind of urban suburban. And I felt like I had a lot of freedom. And that was kind of a special community. Jamaica Plain is totally different and a special community. The North Shore is a special community. There really are a lot of corners of Boston, and you can live very kind of different experiences of the city in them. And I would encourage you to like find the one that feels the most like you. Yeah. You also have the Gardner Museum. I think one of the best museums in the world. I have an emotional attachment to it, but it's the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum, which is like a rich old lady who filled her house with a bunch of random things. And when she died, she said, if any of you move anything, it's all going to Harvard. And so no one's moved anything except for some robbers who took, I think, 6 paintings in the 90s.
Wow.
Great story. So just like kind of let Boston be Boston. Also enjoy the cultural corners. Watertown, they say Watertown is flooded with Armenians. My mom's Armenian, and we go there and just like go to all of the food stores, and they know us now. But like that's its own world. There's just there are a lot of little worlds there. Enjoy
Which
those.
is actually like New York City.
Absolutely.
Like, you just have to like stop comparing. Like that's not a 1-to-1 comparison.
Yeah. And if you hate the kind of Paul Revere ride or don't do it. Just don't do it. And if you really hate it, then move back to Brooklyn. It's okay.
I love how our advice for all these is like
just go back. It's fine.
You should love your city, but also it's okay to like that other city. Like that's okay.
It's true. And do you have anything else to add? Yeah.
Well, it does remind me of like you can be in a new relationship with someone and still like have really fond of like feelings about the other person. But maybe in order to continue your relationship with this new person, you can't be like, I still love that boyfriend. You know what I mean?
Right. Exactly. It's like kind of rude.
Yeah, and also I think sometimes when you go around and tell everyone that you like New York better than Boston, which is like something that I have very much encountered in various places. This is endemic actually in Montana, which is not a place where people think about cities, but there are 5 semi-metropolitan areas. Only one of them would actually be qualified as a city. Missoula gets close. But it's Billings, Bozeman, Missoula, Kalispell / Whitefish, which is where Glacier National Park is, and then Great Falls. And all of them have storied pasts that are so fascinating. And like really Butte should be in this conversation because it was like the most glorious, it was called the richest hill on earth. Like it was a major metropolitan during like the formation of what we think of as the West. But the opinions people have and the shit people talk, like part of it is play, and part of it is like actually like saying what kind of Montanan you are and what kind of person you are based on how you feel about all of these different places. And so sometimes I think it is like this identity performance.
Yes,
and so
absolutely.
To think about that, like what am I trying to prove? Right. By being like I am more of a New York person than I am a Boston person.
Yeah. That's true. And it doesn't have to be cool to hate on Boston. It's okay to like a city that people make fun of because the reason they're making fun of it is either uninformed or very specific to their identity, which isn't about you.
And I always say I actually like Billings, which is like the city that everyone hates in Montana.
Yeah.
And I think part of that is me like being very specific about like I'm not that cool.
Right,
You know what I mean?
right.
Like I like a humble, like there's some humility to a city. And
Absolutely.
maybe that's the thing about Boston is not humble.
Right.
It's not like Boston is like, fuck you, New York.
Yeah, exactly. We're yelling Yankees suck at every baseball game, even if it's not against the Yankees.
Yeah. And I think also like Melody and I were talking about this before we recorded. There is this tendency to be like, well, the city's okay, but it's not New York.
Yeah.
Right. And like, I think New York is objectively the best city in the United States, but I also like
That's not objective. You cannot say objectively. No.
I think objectively it is the best city in the United States. What vies for it? We've been talking about how it's not useful to compare, but at the same time it is the best city. And
it's the most city. It's the cittiest city. Could you say that?
It is the cittiest of all cities, yes.
Yeah, but it doesn't have to be. Yeah.
It also, like, it's not useful to then rank everything afterwards.
No, it's absolutely not.
What would you say is number 2 if you had to?
Me or Melody?
Yeah.
Oh.
Either one of you.
Oh, Melody doesn't even think
number 1.
New York
What's
is
number 1, Melody?
No, the whole point of this episode is we're not ranking cities, and that different people have different relationships to different cities.
Fair.
Totally. Also, like, and it's really, and it's also true at different points in time. Like, I went to Miami when I was single, and I had the time of my life. And then I went to Miami with my husband, and it wasn't as fun.
Yeah.
Useful to know. Like, like my relationship with Boston now, my parents live there, is one thing, and they're moving actually to New York soon, and it will be very different when I go in the future. It just, it's so many things. But yes.
Melody, I'm just being an asshole.
Yeah, I know.
I'm just being a Boston. Okay.
Being a Boston.
So let's go west for our last question, which comes from Erica. And we actually got a bunch of questions about this city too, which was fascinating to me. So
my husband and I moved to Denver a few years ago. He wanted to move here for a long time and is very outdoorsy, while I'm insidey to say the least. Surprisingly, my adjustment has actually been easier than his, thanks to the fact that I already had friends here. But even though I enjoy my life, I still feel the weight of expectations about what living in Denver means and see the disappointment every time I tell someone I don't ski or that I don't hike much. How do I get over this idea of what my life should be if I'm going to live here and better enjoy the insidey things the city offers?
Okay, I've never been to Denver, so I can't answer this like specifically, and I'm sure that you can answer that better, but I will say, like, F those people. Like, the city that you live in and the city that, like, other people think you live in are kind of two different cities, and that's totally fine. You can live in one version of the city, and they can live in another, and you can be disappointed in them for not doing inside things with you. Like, it's not up to them. How you interact with the city. And, you don't have to earn Denver by experiencing it the way you prefer to. And you seem to love it the way you prefer to. And actually, you should probably tell everybody all the inside things that people should do in Denver, because that sounds fun to me.
Yeah, no, I think that there's a real market for that.
Totally.
Like, there are more people. There is a thing that happens in the Mountain West and in the Pacific Northwest where, because our weather is not great that often, that there's just this incredible pressure when the weather is great that you should be outside, like, absolutely optimizing, doing every single thing that you could. And then also that, like, people who are of a certain age do all of these things, right? And I got a very different perspective, like when Charlie and I lived in Missoula, Montana, and he grew up on the East Coast and, like, didn't grow up camping, grow up doing a lot of the things that were very, like, very, very natural and, like, that my family did all the time and that I wouldn't think twice about.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, everyone just expects you to already know how to do these things.
Right.
And kind of looks at you funny if you don't. And that it's really hard to be an adult beginner in these things. And, like, that's, Erica's not describing that because she doesn't have, like, the desire to, she's not like, I want to get into camping and it feels hard and exclusive. She's like, that's just not me.
Yeah.
And so I think that sometimes there is just this, like, hegemonic understanding of, like, what type of person belongs in a place.
Yes.
And that can be related to so many different identity markers
Yes.
and it just sucks. And so like the more that you can actually redefine what it means to be a person who lives in this place, I think is really useful.
Yes, and actively kind of push people on that. They may not even realize they're doing it.
Totally.
Yeah.
I think it's often just a crutch that people don't know. It's a small talk crutch. Like, oh, do you ski? Like, oh, do you whatever? And I don't know if she's talking about people who also live in Denver who are asking her this, or if it's other people when they hear about it, because that's a huge thing, right? It's like when I lived in New York, people are like, oh, so are you going to like museums all the time? Like, do you go to Broadway every night? And like, do you know how long of a train ride that is?
You know, Broadway's like $350 a ticket.
Exactly. Yeah. And so some of it is just like other people trying, like if they meet you on a Zoom call or something like that, like a work meeting, they're trying to like make conversation.
Yes.
And understand that like that you can just be like, it actually reminds me of how when people are like, oh, so like, do you spend a lot of time with your kids or like,
right.
You know what I mean?
They're just trying to find something. They're like, what's new?
Yeah.
It's their what's new.
And you could just be like, actually, I don't have any children.
Right.
Actually, I'm not married to my partner. And just like let the silence sit there.
Yes. Yes.
Someone's like, so do you love skiing? And you're like, actually, I'm really into knitting. It's great knitting weather here. Like Denver is a great city where you could spend a lot of time indoors. Like it's so cozy.
Totally.
So flip that script.
That's really great. That's such a good framing.
Someone in the comments of one of the newsletters the other day framed their own experience of like visiting Denver. They were like, I am not outdoorsy, I am outsidey. And what they meant by that is they like sitting on a patio and having a beer.
Oh my God, I'm
not
like that.
And I loved that distinction. I thought it was so valuable.
Yes.
So coming up with some language like that best describes you, I think will be useful and disarming.
Absolutely.
So.
Can I make one more point about cities that I'd actually want before we move on that I wanted to ask you about?
Yeah.
One thing that as I was looking at all of the questions, I kept finding myself thinking about is like how valuable it is when you live in a city to make local friends and to make weird friends. And by local friends, I mean like locals. And like that could be like an old person and that's your neighbor, or it could be like your crossing guard, or it could be, you know, just like really people who really live there because their relationship with the city is totally different. And a lot of those people really like are happy to take you in if you want to, you know, and they may not be your actual sort of like intellectual social scene or sort of like a cultural, like you may be in even different cultural classes or whatever, but it's important.
And they're going to be the one who can like tell you like where to get your pants tailored or something. You know what I mean? Like they have some of that essential knowledge, or like the handy person that they recommend. Or
and they're going to be the ones that like have their family in the area and they'll invite you to Easter, Thanksgiving, or whatever. But do you have any sort of recommendations in cities that people are living in and moving to about making friends based on all the research you've been doing? I know it hasn't been I read in your recent thing that it's been a
I mean, you're like, you're a slog of a book.
Sorry to make you talk about your book, but I'm curious.
You know, it's interesting. I think that for parents, it's one thing, right? Because it's oftentimes, as we discussed in this episode, like there is just an infrastructure there for you. And those might not be your forever friends, but it is a way to get hooked into something that then allows you to expand your options in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And then for people without kids, like in my experience, it actually is much more difficult unless you find some sort of community infrastructure that you want to engage with. And that can be a volunteer organization, that can be classes. I think classes sometimes like people expect them to provide more bonding than they actually do. It could be like service organizations where you go and once a week you just pack boxes for like, whether it's books for prisoners or packing boxes at the food bank or putting together backpacks that kids take home for the weekend that are filled with stuff for meals and other supplies. Like something like that where you're doing an activity, I think allows conversation to flourish in that sort of way.
That's a really good point.
Or like we were talking about indie bookstores. They always have book clubs, and that is also a way to really get plugged in with an intergenerational community too. But what I tell people that is so frustrating to hear is that it is going to take like 3 to 5 years.
Yeah. It takes
just
time.
Is.
Yeah.
And like you will make some connections and like they will feel good. And then like maybe someone will move, or one connection just like they're just so busy and won't move to the next level. But like it will happen.
Yes.
With that persistence. But that is always part of the risk, right? Of moving to a new place is you have to rebuild that. And even if you have some friends who are there, like, you know, I had my best friend who lived on this island. Like you can't, one friend is not enough. It's just not. So how do you expand that web of support?
It's interesting that it does take time. It's interesting that you said that about sort of doing something together. It's like you kind of have to be in the trenches together, I feel like sometimes, and it's hard to force that, but like to push your intimacy with a friendship into the next realm. Like if you're a coworker is one thing, but if you travel together as coworkers, you like have a totally different relationship. If you're taking a class together and then going home afterwards, one thing, but if you're both packing boxes for a having to get through like 1,000 boxes together, it's another. It's a really good point.
I interviewed someone about moving to Pittsburgh and about how they figured out friendship there as a person in their late 20s. And what they did immediately was like get hooked up with an organization and volunteered to like do some of the grunt work that then became like they became a mark for other organizations that were like, well, we need more people who are actual doers.
Right.
And that really expanded like her community almost immediately. And then she was looking for a job and also packing books for prisoners. And so with one of her friends who was doing that work as well, they were like, oh, well, let's spend like 2 hours at the local library just doing sort of like parallel work together, like submitting job applications together, kind of mirroring one another. And so now that's like let's do this 2 hours, then we go get a bite to eat, and then we go and pack boxes for 2 hours. And like that is how you get intimacy, is doing that every week.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So those sorts of regular things that build on themselves, I think, are really effective.
Amazing. Cool.
But yeah, that's. I love that you keep bringing it back to this. That like you got to make friends to love a city.
I think
it's really true.
I think you just then it really feels like home.
Yeah, that's it. Then it feels like home. Friends are what make a place feel like a place that you love. Like you can love the landscape, you can love the restaurants, you can love the walkability, but it's not going to feel like have that aura of homeness, of care,
right?
Unless you have those connections.
Exactly. Unless that person just like stops by on a Wednesday because they're passing.
Exactly. Okay, for paid subscribers, Lila's going to stick around and help me answer an Ask Ann Anything question about keeping up long-distance friendships with your friends' kids. So if you want to hear that, upgrade your subscription at patreon.com/culturestudy. Lila, do you have any city trips coming up?
Oh, my goodness. Do I have any city trips coming up? I don't have any planned, but I do want to go see 2 concerts this summer, Bad Bunny and Rosalia, and I would love to see them not in my own city. So I'm thinking, I have a friend who's going, I don't know if I can swing this, but I have a friend who's going to Milan to see Bad Bunny, so I kind of want to go.
Sick. There are so many from New York, it's like very simple to go to Milan. That would be really fun.
It would be really fun. And to see Rosalia in like a small city in America would be kind of weird and fun too, I think. Yes. So that's the plan. What about you?
The only place I'm going to Bavaria on a bike trip in September and going to spend a couple days at the end in Vienna. And I spent a couple days by myself in Vienna a couple years ago, and I love Vienna.
Yeah.
Like, what an incredible city.
I want to go
great
so
example
badly.
here of like, I didn't try to do everything. And now I just happened, like, this just was where our friends like wanted to go on this bike trip. I'm like, and now I get to go back and experience more and maybe go to the Habsburg Furniture Museum again.
And then it becomes your place, like a place you go because you've been twice.
Exactly. Where can people find more of you if they want to hear more from you?
Honestly, the major place that I am often is Instagram. Yeah, I try to be a regular human on Instagram and talk to people a lot there.
I love your Instagram.
Thank you so much. My Instagram handle is at Lila Rap, LILAHRAP. We talk about a lot of cultural stuff there, and I make a lot of bread. What else? Substack is a little bit dormant right now. I'm kind of between things, but I'm always writing stories, so you can kind of follow my work there. And that's it for now.
Thank you so much. This has been great.
And this is such a delight. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Culture Study Podcast. Be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts because we have so many great episodes in the works, and I promise you don't want to miss any of them. If you want to suggest a topic, ask a question about the culture that surrounds you, or submit a question for our subscriber-only advice time segment, go to our Google form at tinyurl.com/culturestudypod or check the show notes for a link. And if you want to support the show and get bonus content, head to patreon.com/culturestudy. It's $5 a month or $50 a year, and you'll get ad-free episodes, an exclusive advice time segment, and weekly discussion threads for each episode. The Culture Study Podcast is produced by me, Anne Helen Peterson, and Melody Rowell. Our music is by Poddington Bear. You can find me on Instagram at Anne Helen Peterson, Melody at Melodious47, and the show at Culture Study Pod.